Take a deep breath. Deep conversations are starting.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Deep Conversations by Breath Hub. And I have a very special guest here. We're literally just continuing our conversation. But I want to just stop there, and I would like you to first introduce yourself, as we always do in Deep Conversations, and then we will continue with our conversation.
We've got a very busy schedule. It involves chocolate and then moving on to more serious things. My name is Segolene. I am French, hence the name. And I have been practicing breathwork since I was roughly 6 years old as part of my performance training. So I trained as an actress while still going to school and doing shows regularly. But mastering the breath meant you mastered the voice. So it is something that my theatre director at the time drilled in us in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And it's only when I grew up that I realized, oh, sophrology, hang on, these exercises, I've done them before. Why? And it was because my theatre director had made us do some of these. We do have a lot of letting go exercises that are recommended in acting training in order for you to come into the body as deeply as you can, because if you're in the body, you're not in the head, and you can give yourself to the emotion and to the persona, the character that you're playing. And yes, for singing as well, it was something really useful to have, because if you have no breath, you can't hold the notes. And if you don't control your breath, you can't speak at great length. And it's a bit more difficult perhaps for you to connect to people. So that was my breath journey. It was dominantly, it was dominantly performance-based. And talking about necks, I had an accident when I was 14 years old, and it was my sports teacher in school who punched me in the plexus, tripped me behind the knee, and I fell on my neck and it went crack. And I told her...
Was that a conscious decision?
Yes, because...
Did she or he do it?
She did it on purpose, yes. I wasn't a terrible kid, I promise. It's just that we used to have... I have no idea what the French school system is nowadays. I hope it's changed. I doubt it has. But we used to have compulsory Roman wrestling regularly on the sports curriculum.
Wow.
I know. It's useful.
Whoa, yeah.
And one of the exercises that we had to do was kind of a game of tag, but instead of just touching the person, you had to fall. And none of us had learned how to fall without hurting ourselves. So it was more of a question of, oh, look, I'm falling, and then running and carrying on, because ain't nobody got time to fall for real. And I just happened to be in her direction when she joined the game.
And so you did fall.
I did fall pretty heavily. And then I heard my neck go crack, and I said, I can't turn my head. And she said to carry on with the exercise, which I did not. I crawled to the locker room and grabbed a scarf and put it around my neck, and then was sitting on a bench and just standing against a wall. And she asked me, why are you there? Like, because I can't turn my head. That seemed like a very just like... honest answer. I'm not joining in.
What a juicy story, my goodness. To start with.
It's just like, hello.
I just broke my neck.
I know. It's like, but the neck is something, it's so pivotal.
And it's so delicate as well. We
Absolutely.
don't realize how delicate it is,
You don't realize how delicate it is until the day you actually get hurt in the neck. Or even when you wake up and you've slept funny and you can't really turn your head and you realize, oh, it's making it hard for me to focus, or it's giving me a headache. Yes, because there's so many nerves traveling through this area. And if we're going into Chinese medicine, there's a lot of meridians as well traveling around this area.
Yeah, that might be the reason why people have headaches and migraines and many stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. It's not always a muscular or skeletal issue. There's quite often as well some deeper things, because also your neck is so deeply connected to your throat. And in your throat, you have your voice box. You have the means to express and to connect to people. Yeah. And
it affects your voice as well.
Yes, it affects your voice really, really deeply. And
maybe that's the reason of my voice. Yeah, it might be the reason because why my voice is like this,
Well, you've got a really lovely voice. It's
like deep.
But you're more in the low tessiture, so you have more of a lower voice, which is really soothing. But it also has a lot of air to it, which I was talking about it with someone who's training to be a counselor yesterday, and he had a low, honeyed and quite airy, breathy voice, and in order to create safety, in order to have reassurance, some people have to put on that voice. When you have it naturally,
I have it,
and you have quite a peaceful energy about you as well. It's very healing for people
That's
around.
because of breathwork, breathwork
Absolutely.
and meditation mainly. The reason, and by the way, the reason for our listeners, the reason why we started with a neck conversation, of course, all the neck pain and the shoulder pain, it has a lot to do with dysfunctional breathing habits as well. But we both had accidents related to neck. I had a car accident. She had a school accident. And my car accident was 22 years ago, and my neck pain didn't even start right after that. It started just recently, about like 8 to 10 years ago. And it's a bit strange because I had the accident 22, 23 years ago, and I didn't have this pain.
Yeah.
And then it started as I age, and we found that there was a missing unbalance.
Something that misaligned during the healing.
Something misaligned.
Yeah. So yours was 22 years ago. Mine was, oh heavens, mathematics. So
just say how old you
60.
were.
So I was 14, and I'm now 31. So that's 16 years.
16, 17, yeah.
Yep, I can do math.
Around,
I can totally do
Great,
math.
yeah.
So, and for me as well, it was very much a healing process. So at the beginning, obviously, the neck brace is quite fun to wear. And I didn't understand the way it's designed is for you to rest your head on it. So the first week of me carrying it, I was trying to keep my neck really, really tall and upright. And then the doctor said, why? Can you let the thing help you? Can you let it help? Like, I didn't realize I had to do that. Oh, well. But breathing-wise, I ended up being quite affected as well because of the...
I was going to ask that thing, like when you look back, can you see how that affected your breathing or how your breathing affected that?
Absolutely. And there's some beautiful things and there were some less beautiful things. I started developing breathing spasms. And at first we thought it was because of the punch in the diaphragm, because she did trip me behind the knee, punch in the plexus, and then falling. And some of this definitely had the punch definitely had an impact. However, the other thing that came into play was the paralysis that ensued from the torso really. And as a result, all of the muscles around my ribcage also were really, really tense and closed up completely. And it also meant from a performance perspective, I wasn't able to really give my all. And emotionally and mentally, I closed up.
So mainly you didn't have the ability to let go, which we're basically working on, especially on breath work.
Yeah.
If we can't let go, like everything starts... Yeah, I mean...
And it was difficult to let go also because as a young, maybe naive child, I believed very strongly in forgiveness. And my understanding at the time was that for forgiveness to happen, she needed to say sorry first. And she had not. And I wrote her a letter explaining the full diagnostic of what was going on.
So you were clinging a bit on the story as well. And,
and also, the school kids, took sides, and some kids took the teacher's side. And I was already not in a great place in that school because I was the first 100% French person, not having lived abroad, having made it into that section of that school, which was an international school, and I was on the German part of it. So it meant classes in German and everything. And the other kids who had already been in that school before me, before I arrived, had lived in Germany or Austria or Switzerland or another German-speaking country. And I had not. I was the first ever person to go in. So making friends was not easy. And then you think you've made friends and something like this happens, and then you see people for their true colors again, and you go, oh, where do I stand? But also, I was not going to let this person who made me have this accident, I wasn't going to change school. My parents offered, like, do you want to change school and everything? No, I
You're
worked.
a true warrior, you know?
I worked.
Yeah,
worked. I learned the German language in 6 months.
Wow.
I spent 3 weeks by myself in a family in a village in Germany.
And just because that happened, you learned German in 6 months?
I learned
Wow.
German. I was 11 years old because I really wanted to know what my family name meant. And my grandpa said that, it's probably somewhere between, in Alsace-Lorraine, where it was sometimes German, it was sometimes French. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll learn German then. And I wanted to learn German, and I wanted to learn German fast. So my parents very kindly found a student who was going to that school that I wanted to go to. And she taught me everything. And I passed the test with flying colors and was the first 100% French person not having relatives or lived. I spent 3 weeks in a family that's not living in a country. It's a holiday. And I had, I worked really hard as a child to get into that school. And this was not going to affect things.
Wow.
I was going to stay all the way to the end and get my degree, my graduation with that German degree as well. So I was not going to change. But yes, so there was the pressure of school. There was the pressure of, friendships that were not really there, or you thought they were, but then you go, you were not my friend. That's another thing that hurts.
Yeah, I think we all experience similar.
Absolutely. So on an emotional front, with the breath, if you have a lot of, I cried a lot back then. And if you can cry, it's great because it provides some release. However, it's not always possible because if the hurt is really deep, sometimes you don't cry.
Yeah.
It's because it needs to be birthed.
You suppress that at a deeper level.
And on one hand, there was all of this going on, and there were the shows that I was not able to take a part in because of my injury. So I would still go to rehearsals because theatre is my love, and acting and performing for me is like meditation. It's like a prayer. It's something so deep and essential that I could not live without it. And my parents understood it very early on. And even with the accident, my mum would still drive me to rehearsal, and I'd take part to some extent. And the singing teacher of the company, when he saw me always sit at the back, just said, well, I've got no one. Come along. And I sung my sorrow away with him. But he also made me breathe so deeply and worked on opening my thoracic, doing all of these exercises to open up, to relax the diaphragm, to open the ribcage. And I discovered some new ranges and new levels in my voice, which we didn't know I had, and I'd known him a very long time by that point.
And I think you probably discovered new levels in your thinking system, in your, emotional level and mental level as well, because it's like when when the level of our breathing changes, when our breath changes, like everything related with that, mentally, emotionally, physically, vocationally, everything starts changing. I think that's like the magic of breath.
It feels like there's a moment where your emotions are dancing on your skin, and when you perform, when you sing, and there's something really similar as well when it comes to breathing and meditation, where you get to not just see the emotions dance on the skin, but you get to dance with them, depending on the one that is coming through to be your partner for the day. And if you're struggling with a specific emotion or connecting to that emotion, like I did at the time, then choosing songs that maybe make you happy, or songs that make you cry, or songs that have a very powerful message, then working with these can help you just... It's okay to use somebody else's words in order to express how you feel. This is also why we have art.
Yeah.
And breathing is also an art within that. And artists are deeply connected to themselves and to their breath, even if they're not all doing it consciously. It's something that just happens.
I agree. It's like you can't be an artist if you don't have a functional breathing habit, because it's like your connection with yourself, your connection with the divine, and your connection with that creative energy. And in my experience, breath itself is the creative energy. So, and I've seen people who are in a creative business, not artists, but also artists, like people who are into graphic design and like different levels of artists, not like performing artists, and who got stuck because their breath got stuck in creativity. And I'm so sad to see some of those people, you know, to again reconnect with their creativity. They, you know, do drugs and they do stuff, psychedelics. I mean, it's not that psychedelics are so bad, because now they're speaking about this, you know, scientific part of it and all that. But it's like, you know, why would we do that when we have the natural power to do that? It's like we have a natural thing. It's called breath. It's magically connecting us with the divine and the creative power and the creative energy. Why not try to connect with that instead, you know? So it's like, yeah, it's sad to watch that for me as well, because I know the formula, like knowing the formula, knowing I can get you there, you know, with daily breath work, with breathing practice. You can literally come back to that creative power, come back to that, you know, open up, come back to your center. And it's just, you know, amazing what breath can do. And yeah, I think we have a huge mission to fulfill, to, you know, teach people that, you know, the power of breath.
Absolutely. And for also artists who are experiencing art blocks, I've worked with a few concept artists and graphic designers who all of a sudden one day they wake up and it's heavy to put something into to breathe life into a drawing or a creation. And then because it's not happening, some stay in their heads even more, because why it's not happening? I used to be able to do this really easily. This used to come naturally, etc., etc. And already there is a dysfunction in the breath, because it's not going as low and as deep as it should go. But then with the mental kicking in, it just goes higher and higher and higher and higher. And then, oh, my sleep is gone. Oh, I'm struggling to do this. I can't function. I'm not very hungry, or I'm struggling to sleep. It escalates really, really quickly. And knowing that just doing a few very specific conscious breaths every day, even if you don't have to go and do half an hour straight away. If that's not your thing, just give it a try. It's like everything. Running was not a thing for me. Absolutely not. Oh, heck no. And since my surgery, I've not gone for a run because I haven't been able to really do anything. And I can feel it on my breath. Yeah. It's because it's a different breath practice, really. I'd been practicing running for the past... I learned during lockdown, like a lot of people. But I've been relearning how to run with Patrick McGowan's Oxygen Advantage. And it was an absolute game changer for me. All of a sudden, running just became my new meditation, my moment of, oh, no, I don't have to be completely out of breath. I don't have to hurt. And if it hurts during running, and I don't mean on a physical sense, like I mean, well, yes, it is physical because it's in your lungs, in your throat and everything, but being able to do just solely nasal breathing with intermittent breath holds here and there to actually tell your brain that it's okay and relax it while you're doing something strenuous. It's just like, oh, but when we do yoga, we do these things. Why did I never think of connecting two and two together and making it happen when I tried to go running before? You just have these brain light bulb moments every so often, like, oh, it was meant to be easy along.
And we can actually use breathing and breath work everywhere. You know,
Absolutely.
When we are in deep pain, I've seen people literally ease their body pain, who had accidents and who had severe pain in their bodies just by changing their breath or, you know, moving along with their breath. I've seen people, you probably saw the same thing. I've been seeing people lose weights, tens of kilos, people who couldn't lose weights forever, for years after years. I've been seeing people heal migraine, severe body pain, and it's just, I think if people could understand the power of breath work, and I think that can happen just by practicing 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, that's it.
Absolutely.
They would just stop all kinds of things they are doing and just focus on their breathing, because it's like, it's so powerful, and you can use it everywhere, like running, creativity, concentration.
Even if you're sat on the tube. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sat on the tube, you've got 10 minutes, you might as well do it.
Yeah, great idea, by the way. On the tube, I love it.
Everything, but also because, you know, so now on the tube in the UK, you compulsory to wear a mask, and a lot of people, since wearing the mask, are saying, oh, you know, I can't breathe with it. And like, okay, you know, you can. You can. You just need to slow down the breath and go through the nose. If you're all of a sudden thinking, I can't breathe, it's because originally you were not breathing the right way to start with. So you just need to slow it down. But it's a learning process. It's absolutely a learning process. But it's really interesting as well with the pain, because I noticed it before I had, so long story short, I was diagnosed with generalized periodontal illness with bone loss, meaning the bone in my jaw is destroying itself. And I've recently had surgery to get some new bone in there, and I'll be going through a treatment starting next year for about 8 months, which involves sending laser into the jaw in order to slow it down, because you can't get rid of it, so you just gotta slow the process. And I can say that periodontal pain pre-surgery is probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Because it's just literally, it felt like having 2 screwdrivers planted in the bone of my jaw, and somebody would just be like moving them up and down. And it's deep bone pain. Now, I've experienced pain in my life a few times. Unfortunately, I'm not ill very often, but when I am, and this bone pain was absolutely just the worst, and it's paralyzing, and there's nothing you can do. You don't really feel like eating because everything hurts. You just need to use your breath. And this helped. Like, nothing to do. I tried to just at first I did just some meditative like breaths to really slow things down, and I'd say it helped decrease the pain in the peak of pain. It probably helped it decrease by like 10-15%, which may not sound like a lot, but it allows you to get out of bed and walk around your house and do something else, and, you know, sit outside for a little bit. Just, it allows you to bring a little bit of motion back in. And then I also decided to make use of this other breath technique that I'm currently passing my certification in, called subconscious release technique, SRT, where by using the fight or flight trigger from the brain, you can help disconnect some emotional blocks and patterns that are deeply ingrained in the brain. And I just did myself maybe 5 minutes of SRT to cut the emotional connection to pain, and managed to reduce it by another 20-25, which already is like 30% less than when I woke up. And yes, it did not last the entire day, but at least it gave me a few hours to breathe, to call a friend, to send lifelines, because then when the pain really rises and climbs, there's nothing you can do. Anybody who has experienced extreme periodontal pain and tooth loss that I've spoken to has said the same thing. These were the worst type of sensations they'd ever felt, because anything that affects your jaw affects your speech, affects your brain, affects your neck. It's just one of these, like neck, back to neck. Yeah, back to neck. Back to neck. Yeah. Neck and jaw, everything what a story. Amazing. Everything is so deeply connected. During my surgery, the surgery was meant to be an hour and a half, and it was on local anesthetic. And there were some slight complications, nothing major, but it meant it lasted a bit longer, 2 hours. I breathed for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I just did a breath session for 2 hours. I had been allowed to choose the music
that.
before.
I can imagine
so
that, yeah.
I was just like, can I get some Ludovico Einaudi, please? I just want this, and I'm going to breathe. And I had brought, I wanted, one of these anti-stress things, and I couldn't find mine. So instead, what I brought and introduced the surgeon to it beforehand, because it's important, was one of my friends crocheted me a sheep years ago. And it's a very woolly and fluffy and squeezable thing. So
nice
going there
one.
was like, this is sheep. He's going to be there during the surgery. How old are you? 31. And I'm okay with this. And bless him, he just went, yes, hello, sheep. You might need to squeeze it sometimes, but you're in charge of the surgery at all times. Good. Okay. It's great. But literally just 2 hours of deep nasal inhale and exhales with an occasional then release through the mouth if I needed. Because, well, you have
you
two
were
people
able to
with...
go through that
Yeah.
without...
And it made it, it made it stress-free.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the team contributes a lot, and
Sure.
and there were wonderful humans, and I had a friend waiting for me outside who brought me home afterwards. But knowing that I had my breath for the full thing set the tone for me, but also helped us with the surgeon and his assistant to synchronize, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Because
I mean, you're literally energetically synchronizing with them when you're conscious of your own breath. For people who are, the first-time listeners, when you're conscious of your own breath and when you synchronize with your own breath, you also synchronize with other people's breath. That's kind of like breath is a bridge to energetically connect with other people. And it's like, I mean, this is, of course, physically very stressful, but like emotionally and mentally stressful moments, you could do this. Like if you learn to, change your breath and consciously breathe, you can do it in a stressful moment in the office, in a meeting room. Like connecting with your breath will help you connect with other people, and it's such a gift.
Absolutely.
I think the doctors and the whole team felt it, with you. Like it's kind of like a heartbeat. It's kind of like a wave. It's kind of like a music.
It's very much, and also it's so funny because the music, the playlist that I'd chosen was just on Spotify, so just a random playlist with lots of Ludovico. And he did not know who Ludovico Einaudi was, bless him. So he was very happy to have discovered him that day. But there was a moment where it got a bit tricky, and the music literally gave us a build-up from a breath front, but also for him and the assistant to finally get the wisdom tooth that was trapped at the top out. And the music became so triumphant as soon as the tooth was removed. And he just went, triumphant music. Excellent. And it was like, this is so great. I can't believe I'm saying this from a trip to, someone who's removing teeth and then
a trip from Earth to
adding
Mars.
bone. Exactly. But it's so true.
Yeah, I can fully connect with that because I gave my second birth without epidurals, without anything. It was kind of like a bit fast because it was it was a pre-birth, and I mean, it was so fast. It happened like in a couple of hours, and my whole body literally cracked into two, like probably like 78 centimeters in less than half an hour. You feel your body opening up.
Yeah.
And it was so quick because my body was trying to, push the baby out.
Yeah.
And they couldn't make it. They couldn't have epidural because there was no time. It was not my choice, but there was no time. So I remember I was lying down and the baby was, my second daughter was I was pushing her out. My body was in so much ache, I was crying and I was breathing real fast. And I was trying to control my breath. I was telling to myself, if I don't die right now, I think I'm becoming immortal. It was that much of a pain. It's like I haven't had any pain like that ever in my life. Like I had an accident, I had that, I had fallen down. One time I had a motorcycle accident. I got up from the cycle and then this part of my arm was literally hanging there. So I literally, because I fell down with the whole heavy motorcycle on the left. And when I woke up, it's like, oh, okay, let's go to the hospital. And then they had to put it back. So I had been in pain. Yeah. But this time, oh my goodness, like in half an hour, my body opening up in 7 centimeters, 8 centimeters. It was a huge pain. And if I didn't have my breath, if I wasn't conscious of my breath, and if I wasn't breathing this time shallow, because with the pain I had to breathe shallow. It's like right now when I look back, if I did breathe deep at that time, I could die. I think this is not kind of like a scientific thing, but I think women or people who face severe, like real pain, like the deepest level, they die because they don't shallow their breath down. They don't know how to shallow it down. Because if you keep on breathing deep in that pain, it's like it's unimaginable. It's like it's too much. I could have died. It's like my breath shallow, and I was like, and then I was able to go through that process. It was just, so I do connect with that, and it's kind of like you found your way of coping with that because you were conscious of your breath. Yeah.
And the shallowness, for me also, it's just thinking, for example, about Wim Hof and other cold exposure breath techniques. When there's a lot of anxiety or when the body receives a shock, the exhale is something that the body can skip. And with a fast...
You're releasing
the air quite strongly, and actually getting the CO2 and the air out. So there is still an active diaphragm. Whereas, yes, when everything gets too much and the diaphragm gets stuck and there's no connection to the lower belly, to the breath, to the bottom of the air column, then all of this gets disconnected, and the disconnect just keeps on rising and rising and rising.
Like squeezing your whole body into two.
In performance, we use that sometimes, depending on the emotion that you're trying to connect to and portray. Sending the air all the way down, yes, because then I'm the one in control. But then using muscle tension, just seeing, okay, if I block this muscle here and apply pressure, what emotion is coming out? What is the new quality of my voice? Can I use this now? Should I build a bit more tension? And then when do I release? It's something...
it's kind of like full control of your own body.
Absolutely.
Full control of your energy.
Absolutely. And that's what you need in order to really have that emotional connection with the character, with the person opposite you. To my clients, I always say it's never about Romeo or Juliet. It's about what happened in between. It's when the two bubbles meet. But it's the same in everyday life. It's like your bubble meets my bubble. And it's not about me and it's not about you. It's just about the little magic that happens in the middle when the two bubbles touch. And some bubbles fizz and some bubbles go.
I love it.
And it's just this. It's energy. It's energy and synergy and connection. And we need a lot of that nowadays. A lot more perhaps than we ever have.
Yeah. Thank you for a very deep conversation. It's been a hell of a journey. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask you one last question.
Oh, yes.
With everything you have experienced and breath work and everything, what would you like to see happen to humanity before you die? Like, what would you like humans to understand and get before you die?
That's a big question. Somehow it's making me emotional. Okay, I'm going to need to have a look into that. That listening takes you to listen is the key to everything. We live in a world where a lot of people pretend to listen, where you just can double tap on a video and, oh yeah, no, I've listened to your video. No, you haven't. You have double tapped
That's a good
to
one.
prove a thing. But listening could save you so much time. It could preserve so many relationships, and it could allow you to find yourself more by listening to people, by listening to what happens around you, sitting on a bench, closing your eyes, and just listening to one sound. For example, it's the leaves in the trees, and then maybe it's a car, maybe it's two people walking by, just jumping from one sound to the next. Listening deeply and with intent allows you to hear the music of the world.
And it allows you to connect with the vibe, the energy of life itself.
Yeah.
You know, instead of the physical illusion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
and
beautiful.
Then you can bring some of that back into you, or see what music is playing inside of you as well. Listening.
Yeah.
Just really listening.
Can we say something like listening is the pathway to understanding?
Well, listening, to actively listen is the path to true connection and true understanding.
Connection and true understanding. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
That's a great message. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Breath Hub. It's been lovely.
Yeah. And thank you for listening. If you haven't downloaded Breath Hub yet, I'm going to kill you if I find you.
Do it. You can hear my voice. I'm really sorry. I was a bit sick today, so my voice is like this.
Yeah.
But on the app, it sounds a lot better.
Yeah, it's a nice one. And thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.